So I already did a video explaining the front side. Let's do this second video explaining the back side. Let's start with number 14. It's all about PEMDAS here. So there are no parentheses, but we do have exponents. Now the important thing to understand here is that the base is not -5. The base is 5. That minus sign doesn't really belong to the 5 yet, because you're supposed to do 5 squared first. You do not have, let me show you, I might be overkill here. You do not have parentheses including that minus sign. It's not a -5 squared. You do not have that, okay? It's really just a minus 5 squared. So obviously, we're going to be doing 5 squared first and get 25, and then I'm going to bring down everything else exactly the way it is. After rewriting everything, I'm going to go back to PEMDAS. I've already done exponents. Do I have any multiplication or division? Yes, I have both of them right here. How do I approach this? I go from left to right. So 30 divided by 3 is what? 10. And then we have 10. Let's rewrite everything. Again, just do one step at a time. Rewrite everything. And then after you rewrite it, we have multiplication and subtraction. Of course, we're going to multiply first. Then 10 times 7 is 70. Then we bring down the minus 25, and we're down to the final answer, which is 45. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Simple as popping a pimple in a dimple. What? That's gross. Okay, sorry. Now, this print is not that great. I apologize. Again, similar to the class opener today, we're going to treat these like if they were two separate problems. I'm just going to focus in on the top. I have two things to do, adding or exponents. What do I do first? Exponents. What's 2 to the third? 8. So I'm going to write my 8, but I'm going to rewrite everything else exactly the way it is. On the top, that is. Now, we still have the bottom to deal with. I'm going to be working on both top and bottom at the same time. On the bottom, we also have exponents and multiplication. So we're going to be doing exponents on the bottom. 5 squared is 25. And of course, I do one step, then I rewrite the rest. And now let's work on the top. 6 plus 8, that is 14, thank you. And 25 times 2, that is 50. So 14 over 50 is our fraction. Now, if it were like 14 over 7, you would actually divide. 14 divided by 7 is 2. But it's not. It's 14 divided by 50. You can't do it. But you could reduce. They're both even, so you could at least reduce by 2. So 14 over 50 reduced by 2 becomes what? 7 over 25. Sas. Moving on. 16. Again, I apologize for the print here. Up on the top, the parentheses is what we start with. That's 5 times 2. What I want to do is I want to write the answer 10, and then I'm going to rewrite everything else on the top exactly the way it is. Now, you could put parentheses around the 10 if you want. You don't have to. Now, we still have the division bar. And let me treat the bottom like if it were a separate question. On the bottom, I have subtraction and exponents. What do I do first? Exponents. So 2 to the 4th, that's really 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. So I really have 16, and again, let me rewrite the rest exactly the way it is. So I have the top and the bottom right there. I've done one step on each, top and bottom. And let's continue by writing my division bar. And on top, what do I do first? Exponents or add? Exponents. What is 100? What is 100 squared? What is 10 squared? It's 100. So we're going to write that down, 100. Rewrite everything else the way it is. On the bottom, we might as well do that bottom last step. 16 take away 5 is 11. So our final fraction after adding 100 plus 10, that's going to be 110 divided by 11. 110 divided by 11 is 10. Right? Because if you take 11 and multiply by 10, it's like adding a 0 to it, so that'd be 110. So yeah, 110 divided by 11, that's the final answer, 10. Okie doke. Now again, if you're confused about that, go ahead and do some long division. Put the 110 inside the box, inside the division box. Put the 11 on the outside and ask yourself, 11 times what will get me 11? Oh, well, 11 times 1 will get me 11. and you subtract, you get a 0, you drop a 0, and of course 11 times what gets you 0? That's 0. That's how you get the answer 10. Let's jump to the next question, number 17, more PEMDAS. Okay, so we have brackets here. So we're going to zoom in. We're going to ignore the 2 out there for a little while. But inside the brackets, we have exponents, addition, division, and more parentheses, right? So we need to zoom in even further and ignore everything. And that's 48 divided by 8. That is 6. And let me zoom out a bit and rewrite everything. So I want to rewrite everything. There's the brackets. Oh, I forgot the 2 on the outside. What else? You could keep these parentheses if you want. You could put them down on the 6 if you want, but it's really pointless because you're adding. So you could just leave it like that, 6. So we're still inside the brackets. And inside the brackets, we have 3 squared and we have a plus 6. So what do we do first? 3 squared, exponents first, right? 3 squared is 9. Let me zoom out and rewrite everything. As you could see, I brought down the plus, the 6, the brackets, the 2 on the outside. I brought everything down. So we're still inside the bracket doing 9 plus 6, which is 15. Rewrite everything. Bring the 2 down. 2 times 15 is 30. And moving on, 18. Oh, we get to the fun, easy ones. Are we multiplying right here between the -7 and the -4? No. The only time you're multiplying is when there's no sign between the 2 terms. So right here, we're obviously combining the terms. We're adding or subtracting. It all depends on the sign. We're going to think of money. I owe somebody $7. I owe somebody else $4. I owe a lot of money. I owe $11. So -11. Number 19, we have 2 times -8. What's the answer there? -16. A positive times a negative is a negative. The only time you get a positive answer when you're multiplying is if you have like 2 times 3 is positive 6, right? Or if you have a negative times a negative equals a positive. Right here, the signs are different, so the answer is negative. If a good thing happens to a bad person, that's bad. Number 20, it's a fraction. Normally, you think of this and you first try to divide. 24 divided by, if it were a 6 down here, or maybe a 2 or a 12, you'd be able to divide it and get a final answer. But 24 divided by 27, you can't divide 24 by 27. But you could reduce that fraction by what? So let's divide by 3, reduce by 3 in other words. And we end up with 24 divided by 3 is 8. 27 divided by 3 is 9, so 8 over 9 is our answer, but we do have this minus sign out in the front, so you have to put that same minus sign out there. Now you could put that minus sign on the 8. I mean, technically you could put it on the 9, but you can't do it to both, or you could just keep it safe and put it out here in the middle. 21 and 22, actually I don't like 22, and I'll explain why. But we need to understand the difference of when we actually have parentheses around the base, including that minus sign, so the base really is -2. So right here we have parentheses, over here we don't. So right here, when you do the parentheses, I mean, it's including the minus sign, so you have to write -2 as the base multiplied with itself 2 times. So to show our work, I know most of us already know the answers for, but to show our work, we have the -2 times the -2. That answer is +4. Now on number 22, it does not have parentheses. However, on this particular question, it didn't really affect it much, because if I were to expand this, okay, as you can see, I expanded. This is ridiculous. Do not expand. This is dumb, right? I just wanted to show what is, like, let's ignore this minus sign for a while. What's 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1? 23 times. That's just 1, right? So the answer is 1. But what about that negative in the front? You just put it right there in the front. Your answer is -1. Done, right? Now, the reason why I didn't like this, because it's not really checking. I think on the test tomorrow, it might be something like this, like -1 in parentheses to the 23rd power. But that answer would still be what? It would still be -1, because an odd exponent means that you won't be able to pair up every single number. So there's going to be one odd one out, which makes it -1. Anywho, let's move on. 23. We are not multiplying. The minus minus changes to plus plus. And I don't even want to say that we're adding. I just like to say we're combining, because you think about owing $8 and having $15. You could pay them off. You'll actually have money left over. You'll have 7 left over. So the answer is positive 7. Write a verbal expression. Okay, so these are going to be challenging on this practice test. They're going to be easy on tomorrow's actual test. Because right here, it's open response. There's many, many different ways of writing this. Could somebody give me a way of writing this phrase? So one way of saying it is m squared times p cubed. Of course, you need to know that the power of 2, you could write it as square, and the power of 3, you could write it as cubed. Now, it might not be written like that. It might be, right? But it might not be. It might be written as the product of m to the second power and p to the third power. That's another way of writing it. Or you could say the product of m squared and p cubed. I mean, there's so many different ways of writing it. We just need to be familiar with all those different words, because they're going to give it to you as a multiple choice answer. Obviously, 3 are wrong. One of them's right. And 25 is there's even more possible ways of writing 25. We could simply go with, so that's as simple as it gets, 2 times m squared plus 7. Now, they might not write it like that. They might use some tricky words like more than. So they might say 7 more than, because more than implies a switch. And then they might say more than 2 times m squared, or they might even get fancier and say 7 more than the product of 2 and m squared. So there's like tons of different ways of writing these phrases. Again, we need to be familiar with all of them. And I want to just end it there. But again, watch both of these videos on this practice test. Review your practice test. You need more practice? Go back to the 3 class opener reviews that we've done the past 3 days. Guys, I know I'm still recording here. I want to just tell you this, that algebra, it does get way harder. Take advantage of these easy tests, these easy quizzes. Study hard. Get a solid A. That way later on, when it gets harder, later on when we're graphing parabolas and doing all these like crazy equation solving, if you struggle there, you have a solid A. So if you mess up on a quiz or test, your A becomes an A minus, right? If you're slacking off right now and you're just scraping by, you're like, I'm cool with the C, man, you're gonna wish that you had an A once you get to that harder section. So please do your best, get an A+ on tomorrow's test.